Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Genetics and Molecular Epidemiology Certificate Program. We are so happy that you could join us this afternoon. My name is Emily Lakemaker, and I'm the Associate Director of Recruitment and Student Life. And I'm joined by a couple of colleagues here today that will introduce themselves in a moment that will be running the webinar. Just a few logistics up here at the top. We are recording this, so you will be able to go and view this on our admitted student portal. We'll have this posted probably within the next 3 business days or so. We'll get that up on the admitted student portal, so you can view that and if you need to go back and review any of the information that we cover here. Additionally, we're going to be going through the program first, through the PowerPoint, but at any point that you have questions, please feel free to type them in. You can see in the upper right-hand corner where my cursor is, you should see a section titled Questions. Feel free to type those questions in throughout the presentation. Once we get to the end, we'll go through, read them aloud, answer them, and get through as many as we can in the hour that we have allotted. And we'll also be providing all the proper contact information for you guys if you want to reach out directly after this session. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer and Nicole as they go through, and we'll go through the program itself.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Muley. I don't know if it's weird for you guys to listen to a webinar. It is definitely weird for me to give a webinar. I really wish that you guys were in front of me here. And so June 22nd, August 22nd is when we're going to have an actual in-person presentation. And so if you want to drop by then just to say hi, that'd be great. So I'm just going to tell you first a little bit about, how do I advance? Okay, perfect. So I just want to tell you a little bit about me and about, because I think it informs why I'm so passionate about genetic and molecular epidemiology. I did my undergraduate degree at Johns Hopkins. I finished that in 1993. I started Hopkins as a pre-med student, but in about 5 minutes I realized that that wasn't right for me. And then I spent some time at Hopkins sort of unsure what I wanted to do. I graduated in 1993, and then I took 5 years off in between college and grad school. I was really cute and really young and drunk for most of that 5 years off, but I had a great time. And then all parties end, and so in 1998 I went back to school to get a master's degree in genetic epidemiology at Johns Hopkins. So in the 5 years that I took off, in addition to having fun, I worked at a variety of labs, and I really fell in love with genetics, and I knew I wanted to do something with genetics and public health. And so in 1998 I enrolled in a master's degree at Johns Hopkins. Fantastic training experience. I worked doing genetic studies of schizophrenia in a sort of family-based genetic studies. And genetic epidemiology was awesome, but at that time at Hopkins, really all of the action in genetic epi was happening, surprisingly, in the School of Medicine. And so I switched programs to do a PhD in human genetics proper, again doing more genetic studies, this time a SNP-based association study in schizophrenia trios. I finished my degree in 2005. At that point, I'd run out of schools at Johns Hopkins to go to, and so I moved to Atlanta to do a postdoctoral fellowship at Emory University, again studying schizophrenia, this time looking at rare variants, a specific type of genetic variant called copy number variants, and we found some really exciting things. I also had 2 kids during my postdoc, so it was kind of a long postdoc. It felt like infinity. And then in 2011, I took a faculty position at Emory at the Rollins School of Public Health in the Department of Epidemiology. And so as you can see, I've bounced back and forth between genetics and epi, and I think that one really informs the other, and it's fantastic. Even though it's a little bit difficult and hard, it's fantastic to have exposure to both. As an assistant professor at Emory in the Department of Epidemiology, I've again focused more on schizophrenia, looking at a specific deletion on chromosome 3 called the 3q29 deletion. It's highly associated with schizophrenia, and we're doing a lot of functional studies to understand that. And then a portion of my work is devoted to the human microbiome and how it relates to adverse health outcomes. So I have a lot of experience and a lot of background, and it's been really fun. And because of that, I wanted to give students the same or a similar exposure that I had, and so we created the Genetic and Molecular Epidemiology Certificate Program. So there's a running joke that if you put 3 epidemiologists in a room, they will exit with 4 different definitions of epidemiology. But my favorite definition of epidemiology is to call it the study and analysis of the distribution and determinants of disease. And the reason why I like that definition so much is because then it's easy to think about genetic epidemiology and molecular epidemiology as the study and analysis of genetic and molecular distribution and genetic and molecular determinants of disease. And in recent years, as you're probably aware, there's been an ever-increasing inclusion of genetic and molecular data in public health sciences. And so here's just a few examples of that. These are just some papers that I pulled off of recent reports. So this first one is from JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, association of a genetic risk score with body mass index across different birth cohorts. So BMI, obesity, is a really important public health problem, and now we're relating genetics to that. Here's another study. This is an association between a loss of function allele at a specific gene and efficacy of a stroke medication. So there's a sort of gene-environment interaction. If you have a particular flavor of a gene, this stroke medication either will work or will not work for you. Really fascinating work lately in epigenetics is happening. Epigenetics is, you may know, epigenetics are sort of adducts onto DNA molecules, and they seem to be related to, they're sort of like molecular memory. So when you are exposed to something, you can sometimes get an epigenetic change, and that epigenetic change can even be transmitted down to different generations. And so epigenetics also may be a marker of aging, which is sort of a fascinating prospect. Some people may age faster than others, and some people may age slower than others. We all know 70-year-olds who are incredibly spry, and 40-year-olds who can barely walk, and that may be related to epigenetics. Polygenic risk scores for heart disease. Here's another sort of very well-known public health concern. In the wrong place on the wrong SNP. Now here's an association, stressful neighborhoods, an environmental association, and cardiac arrest. So we have a stressful environment, we have an outcome of heart disease, and we have genetic variants. And then this is just strictly molecular, this is plasma concentrations of a well-known environmental contaminant and time to pregnancy. So maybe this environmental contaminant may be related to preterm birth. So these are just a few examples, just a handful that I pulled down off of recent literature to show how invasive genetic and molecular data has become in public health studies. So what's the GME certificate about? So the GME certificate is designed to give students exposure to sort of the types of data, genetic and molecular data, that are being included in public health studies. So I say genetic data or molecular data, but what does that really mean? We want to give you some hands-on exposure, no pun intended, to what those data are, and what they look like, and the structure of those data, so that you understand when you think about public health research and practice, how that data can be included. We want you to understand where the data come from, how the data are generated, what sort of substrates you need. Does it come from blood? Does it come from skin? Does it come from saliva? And the sort of ways that the data can be subject to bias or error. And then, of course, how to use these data, how they might inform public health research, and how they might inform public health practice. So let's say that you're interested. How do you get this certificate in genetic and molecular epidemiology? So the first thing that you have to do is, the first semester that you're here, you should enroll for this prerequisite course, Epi 510. It's 1 credit. It's a pass-fail course. It's Fridays. It's just an hour. It starts at 3 and it ends at 4. And it's a great class. I realize Friday afternoon is not a great time for a class, but it turns out that it's actually, students find it sort of a great way to end their week. It's a very relaxing class. So the intention of this class is we have different people who are involved in public health research or practice come in, people who are engaged with genetic or molecular data. They come in and they talk to you. It's not really a lecture course, it's more like a conversation. They come in and they tell you about the ways that they're using genetic and molecular data. There's usually some readings beforehand so that you can come in prepared to ask questions. But it's really a conversation, so you can interact with this person, and that's really the intention of the course, is for you to interact with the speaker and ask, how are you using these data? What's the future of these data? Remember, 5 to 10 years from now, you're going to be the person or sooner than that, you're going to be the person using these data potentially. Do you like it? Are you interested in it? Does this sort of intrigue you? This is your opportunity to figure that out. It's low cost, you dip your toe in the water, you come to understand what these data are and the types of studies that are being done. So you enroll in this course, and let's say that you really like genetic and molecular epi and you want to enroll in the certificate. So there's an application. The application is available on the certificate website. The deadline for that is the 1st of October. And if you're accepted into the program, then there's some additional things that you have to complete. You have to take 8 elective credits in genetic and molecular epi. 4 of those credits are going to be concentrated in 2 courses that you have to take. One class is Public Health Applications of Molecular Epidemiology, which is taught spring in the odd years. And the other class is Human Genome Epidemiology, which is taught every spring semester. 2 fantastic classes taught by really outstanding faculty, and they're great classes for you to take. And then the remaining 4 credits you can take in any way that you want from approved elective courses. We have a list of elective courses, but students are continually nominating other courses that they think are appropriate, and often we can approve those courses. So that's what you have to do for coursework. 8 elective credits, 2 classes you have to take, 4 credits that you can take any way you want. And then you have to do a practicum, which the practicum must involve in some way genetic or molecular data, and it has to be approved by me. And then your culminating experience also has to involve genetic and molecular data and has to be approved by me. But if you like this stuff, that should be something that you want to do. So, so here's just a few examples of Practica and culminating experiences. So there's a current GME student who, for their practicum, is a graduate assistant at the Hope Clinic at the Emory Vaccine Center, and this person is assessing the safety and immunogenicity of vaccine products in clinical trials. Incredibly cool. We have another graduate assistant in the Rwanda-Zambia research group who is formalizing a protocol for acute HIV-1 infection detection, conducting a cost-effective analysis for this protocol, and outlining best practices for project logistics concerning sample collection, sample processing, subject enrollment, and subsequent follow-up. Again, super cool study, and there's a few others listed on this page that you can look at. But our students generally get involved in really exciting, high-profile projects where they get to look at genetic and molecular data. So there's a few field experiences that we're excited about, a couple of lab tours, and then once a semester we have lunch with the program director, that's me, GME students, and GME faculty, where of course we talk about how awesome genetic and molecular epi is, but we also get feedback from you about obstacles that you've had, challenges, things that you like, things that you don't like, because your feedback is really important. We're still sort of developing the program and tailoring it, and you help us make it awesome. So I think I talked about the prerequisite course. It's, again, dip your toe in the water. It's an overview of how genetic and molecular data is used in public health research and practice. We have people who come in from the Rollins School of Public Health, from Emory School of Medicine. We have CDC speakers. We have people from the American Cancer Society. The class is only an hour, but the discussions often are so interesting. We've had people stay. The class turns into an hour and a half. People just hang out to talk, the faculty and the students, because our discussions wind up being so interesting. And one thing I may or may not have mentioned is that half the grade is based on class participation. And that's because one of the things we really want to develop in you is we really want you to have the confidence to talk to faculty and other public health professionals. And by making your grade based on class participation, it really forces you, and once you get into the groove of that and realize that nobody's going to bite your head off and that often you have valuable things to contribute, it increases your confidence and you become even better at talking in those venues. So now's the time when I can answer any questions. This is the website. That's my contact information. Nicole Regan is the program administrator. We are incredibly lucky to have her. She is a huge resource and can answer almost all of your questions. But we can answer questions now.
Yeah, we'll open it up. So as you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the question box. Looks like we don't have any yet, but my guess is you guys probably have some, although I think that just takes as a sign that our presenter did a phenomenal job of getting through everything.
I was that complete, that thorough.
Everything was covered. But in the meantime, while you guys may be putting in your questions, we did want to remind you, one, to be checking into the Admitted Student Portal. That's where all the important information about orientation and steps that you need to be taking this summer to prepare for this fall is all located. And probably, I would think by the end of mid-July is when we'll have registration up for new student orientation. You can view the program from last year. It'll be relatively similar. But you can review the program from last year just to get a general idea of what that looks like and be on the lookout for that registration and further communications from us on that. And that's pretty much the only things that, Brittany, do you have any? Also with us today is Brittany Romanson, the Assistant Director of Student Life.
Hi, everyone. I'm just trying to think of some common questions that we typically hear from students. I think a common one is, can you do 2 certificate programs at once?
Yeah,
and throw it back to you.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think I'll let our resident ADAP handle that one.
So this is Nicole Regan. I am one of the ADAPs or advisors in the Department of Epidemiology, and I also have the privilege of helping Dr. Moulet run the Genetic Molecular Epidemiology Certificate Program. So Brittany had a really great question that does come up a lot, and the question is, can you combine more than one certificate program? And the answer is that it depends. It is technically possible, however, it can get very tricky because you have to remember you're not only trying to fulfill your home degree program, so for example, HPM, MPH, but also the requirements of the different degrees, certificate programs. And so it really kind of depends on what program you're in, which 2 certificates you're interested in. Where we most often see students have difficulties if they're attempting to do more than one certificate is with the practicum or capstone, thesis capstone. So for example, if you're in genetic and molecular epidemiology and the complex humanitarian emergencies, it might be difficult to find a practicum that is related to both genetics and molecular epidemiology and complex humanitarian emergencies and fulfills the BSHE requirements. So what we often recommend is students really try to pick one. And then certainly, for example, in our certificate program here, most of these courses are available to students who are interested. So even if you were not able to complete a certificate, you could still kind of follow or pick and choose those certificate classes that were most relevant or of interest to you.
Awesome. So we've got a couple of questions here. Michael is asking, for the practicum, can we use the practicum to also cover our MPH practicum, or do we need to do separate practicums for this GME certificate?
So the practicum is for all RSPH programs is a minimum of 200 hours. And so what we say for the certificate is you have to do a minimum of 200 hours of related GME practica. For most students, that will count as the same practicum for example, your BSHE MPH. The only exception would be if you have, if you're having difficulty kind of finding practica that meet both the requirements of your department and the certificate program, or if you have a really great experience that would be good for your degree program but doesn't meet the requirements of the certificate, then some students will do more than one as long as it meets that 200 hours. And so working a couple weeks full-time over the summer, you'll easily hit 200 hours. Working a couple of hours, 5 to 8 hours over the course of the semester, you'll hit that minimum requirement as well.
Yeah, so I think that this, in the latest GME class, we have one student who has had to do 2 practica. That student is an HPM student, and so but most of our students do only one, and it covers everything.
All right, next up, Allison is asking, when do we have to commit to a certificate program? And it depends.
So that's going to depend, yeah, that's going to depend on the certificate program. So I would encourage you to go to the websites for those that you're most interested in. So some are kind of some will be entry your first semester. Some will have an application process, some will not, and then others are more kind of open. So for example, the socio-contextual determinants of health is kind of an open cohort provided you meet the requirements. So it really depends. So I would encourage you just to kind of look at those certificates you're most interested in. As Dr. Moulet mentioned, we really, really prefer students to take FE 5010 their first semester and kind of complete that application the first semester to ensure you have enough time to find a relevant practicum and culminating experience program. We are willing to review students potentially to enter in the second year, but the other difficulty is some of our required courses are only offered on an alternating schedule. So if you kind of miss one of the core courses and wait till your second year to apply, you might not be able to complete the certificate. So it depends. For our purposes, we really try to say in that first semester, and that's really one of the purposes of that introductory class is really for you to get a good idea of if this is something that you want to commit to.
Yeah. So that looks like it's about it. I think, we've covered a lot, and I think we've given you guys time to type in any questions you may have. You can see all the contact information here on this last slide. So if you do have any additional questions, we got one more that just came in from Anna. So Anna's asking, are the GME core courses required before taking the other 4 credits of electives? If not, is it recommended to take them before the other electives?
So they're not required before your elective courses. I think it's fine, and Dr. Murley can certainly correct me, to kind of be taking them concurrently or in whichever order fits best in your schedule or when classes are offered. You would want to note for any of the elective courses that there might be prerequisites outside of the certificate program that you would need to meet as well. But in general, you can be taking them sort of as they occur.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can take them pretty much at any time. As Nicole mentioned, the only course that there are some courses that are given only once every other year, and so you really have to try to get into that course at the right time. But the rest of them you can take whenever you want, whenever you're comfortable.
Awesome. Okay, so maybe once we try to wrap up, then that gets us more questions. So we'll try to wrap up again, and maybe we'll get another question. But in all seriousness, again, like we mentioned, all of the contact information is there. Please feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to help make sure that you get all your questions or concerns addressed. And again, there will be the on-campus info session August 22nd. Do we have a time on that? I mean, and emails will be sent out with that, with times and reminders and room location and all of that. So if you want to come in and meet the staff that run this program, I think that would be very beneficial too. So with that, we will wrap up, and thank you so much all for joining us. As I mentioned, this will be posted on our Admitted Student Portal probably by the end of the week. Usually it's about what it takes us to get these up and running. So with that, I hope everybody has a great week, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.